What happens when the person accused of a high-profile shooting isn't just fighting the charges but is fighting who gets to prosecute the case? In a move that could reshape this entire trial, the accused Charlie Kirk shooter is now asking the court to dismiss the case altogether, claiming the very prosecutors trying to convict him may have a conflict of interest. This isn't about guilt or innocence, at least not yet. This is about fairness, power, and whether the justice system can police itself when serious accusations are aimed at those in charge. Before we go any further, if you care about true crime stories that dig deeper than headlines, take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And in the comments, tell me what you think about this case so far and where you're watching from. To understand why this motion matters, we need to slow down and look at the basics: who is involved, what is being alleged, and where this case currently stands. At the center of this case is a man accused of carrying out a shooting involving conservative commentator Charlie Kirk. The allegations are serious, and the potential consequences are severe. Prosecutors have charged the defendant under state law, and the case is moving through the criminal court system. The prosecution is being handled by local county attorneys, the same office, now facing accusations of a conflict of interest. The defense, representing the accused, is not denying the gravity of the allegations at this stage. Instead, they are challenging the process itself. Specifically, they argue that the prosecutors overseeing this case may not be able to act as neutral representatives of the state. This motion arrives before a jury has heard evidence, before testimony has been weighed, and before guilt or innocence has been decided. That timing is critical, because if the defense is right, if there truly is a conflict of interest, then everything that follows could be called into question. This is where the case shifts from a criminal allegation to a direct challenge against the prosecution itself. The defense has filed a motion asking the court to dismiss the case or, at minimum, remove the current prosecutors based on what they describe as a conflict of interest. In simple terms, a conflict of interest claim argues that the people responsible for prosecuting the case may have personal, institutional, or professional interests that interfere with their duty to act fairly and objectively on behalf of the state. According to the defense, this is not a hypothetical concern. They argue that the same prosecutors accused of being conflicted are now defending their own conduct, rather than stepping aside and allowing an independent authority such as the state's attorney general to review the issue. That distinction matters, because in most criminal cases, prosecutors represent the public interest. Defense claims the prosecutors are also protecting their own interests, blurring a line that is supposed to remain clear. The defense is not asking the court to weigh evidence of the shooting itself. They are asking a more uncomfortable question. Can prosecutors accused of a conflict be trusted to decide whether that conflict exists? And once that question is on the table, the court can't ignore it. Because if the process is compromised, the outcome, no matter what it is, may never be trusted. Once the defense raised the issue of a conflict of interest, the spotlight shifted away from the accused and directly onto the prosecution. The defense argues that the prosecutors handling this case have a vested interest in remaining in control of it. If they step aside, it could imply that the conflict allegations have merit. If they stay, they continue to hold power over a case that directly challenges their own neutrality. That's the dilemma at the heart of this motion. Instead of referring the matter to an independent authority, such as the Attorney General's office, the prosecutors chose to respond themselves. From the defense's perspective, that response isn't just inadequate, it's inappropriate. In criminal justice, appearances matter almost as much as outcomes. Even the perception that prosecutors might be protecting their own position can undermine confidence in the entire case. The defense is essentially arguing that justice cannot be seen as fair if the same office accused of bias is also acting as judge of its own impartiality. This isn't about accusing prosecutors of wrongdoing outright. It's about whether the structure of the case allows for true independence. And when independence is questioned, every decision that follows becomes vulnerable to doubt. That's why this moment is so critical, because the court must now decide whether maintaining the status quo does more harm than good. When courts face questions like this, they don't decide in a vacuum. They look to precedent prior cases that define how conflicts of interest should be handled when they threaten the integrity of a prosecution. The defense points to legal precedent establishing that courts have the authority to intervene when a conflict may exist. In certain circumstances, a judge can direct an independent office, often the Attorney General, to step in, either to evaluate the conflict or to take over the prosecution entirely. The logic behind that authority is straightforward. The justice system is built not just to deliver verdicts, but to protect legitimacy. When a case risks appearing compromised, the court's role is to restore confidence before irreversible damage is done. Here, the defense argues that the threshold has been met at least enough to justify independent oversight. They are not asking the court to declare misconduct. They are asking the court to recognize that unresolved conflicts, even potential ones, can poison the process. This is where procedure becomes just as important as evidence. Because if the court ignores credible concerns about impartiality now, any conviction later could be overshadowed by questions that were never properly addressed. The outcome of this motion could dramatically alter the path of this case. If the court agrees that a conflict of interest exists, it has several options. The judge could order the current prosecutors removed and direct an independent office to step in. The case could be reassigned to another jurisdiction. In the most extreme scenario, the charges could be dismissed altogether. Each of those outcomes carries serious consequences. For the prosecution, removal would signal that the court believes neutrality has been compromised, or at least that it can no longer be assumed. For the defense, it could mean a reset of the entire process. And for the public, it would raise difficult questions about how often conflicts go unnoticed or unchallenged. If the court denies the motion, the prosecutors remain in place, and the case moves forward. Even then disappear. The defense could preserve the argument for appeal, meaning the conflict claim could resurface long after a verdict is reached. That's why this moment matters beyond the single defendant. Cases like this test whether the justice system prioritizes efficiency or legitimacy, whether it is willing to slow down to protect fairness, even when the allegations themselves are politically charged and emotionally charged. Because once public trust is shaken, it's not easily restored. From a true crime perspective, this case is fascinating not just for the alleged shooting, but for what it reveals about power, process, and accountability. Here, the spotlight isn't just on the accused, it's on the system itself. The defense's motion forces the court, the public, and viewers like you to ask uncomfortable questions. Can prosecutors be trusted to police themselves? What happens when the very office tasked with upholding justice is also accused of bias? And how does the system respond when fairness and perception collide? These are the moments true crime enthusiasts recognize as the invisible storylines, the tension beneath the headlines. They are not about guns or victims, at least not directly. They are about how justice is administered and whether rules meant to protect fairness are applied consistently. The careful strategy of the defense highlights another key element. Sometimes the most powerful moves in a case are procedural, not evidentiary. By focusing on conflicts, the defense is shining a light on a potential weakness in the system itself, a weakness that could influence every subsequent step of the trial. For viewers, this is what separates routine crime reporting from true crime investigation. The intrigue isn't only in the alleged crime, it's in the human dynamics, institutional pressures, and ethical questions that shape the entire process. As the court considers this motion, one thing is clear: the case is far from over, and the stakes extend beyond any single courtroom. The decision on whether to remove the current prosecutors or allow an independent authority to step in could set a precedent not just for this trial, but for how future conflicts are handled in the justice system. For now, the accused remains under indictment, the prosecutors remain in place, and the public is left watching closely. The tension is quiet, but it's there like a ripple beneath the surface, threatening to shift the course of the case with every procedural decision. Most powerful stories are not always the loudest. They are the ones where process, power, and ethics collide in ways that can change lives forever. And in this case, that collision is happening right now. Before we wrap up, don't forget to like this video, share it with friends, subscribe to the channel, and comment below with your thoughts on the case and let us know where you're watching from. Your perspective helps keep the conversation alive and ensures that justice and accountability remain at the center of every discussion.